Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay, after this quite common hiccup with the sound, good morning to you all again. Lovely to have you here on this Thursday morning. And I'm very happy that we can explore together this morning a concept which is another of those central Buddhist concepts, which is the middle way. We're going to talk about the middle way. I know I said something yesterday about clarity, but when I had this sense of what I want to do with you and what is the appropriate way of building it up, I actually want to talk about the middle way first. So tomorrow, more about clarity, and today, something about the middle way. And before we step into that, just the usual couple of reminders that if you run into any technical issues, if you want to give me any feedback on sound and video, please feel free to use the chat box just as you did with the sound. And if you run into any technical issues, which luckily have become much less common in the past week, you go to the chat box as well, and maybe some members of the Sangha will be able to help you out with that. Now, and at the end of our session, we're going to do my talk first, and then we're going to have practice in terms of a guided meditation. And at the end, I'd love to share again with you on your experiences, on your doubts, on your resistances, on your practice, on anything which you found interesting, or on your questions. And if you put that into the chat box later, that will be wonderful. Some of you wrote in capital letters, either comment or question or something. You can write sharing, and that will help me to know who to respond to. And I'm looking forward to the exchange with you. And last thing is the usual reminder of the fact that these sessions are based on donations. And if you can give something, it is very much appreciated as a contribution, support for Sangha Life. And of course, some part of it will go to myself as well. So thank you for everything you have given during this week or in the past already. Thank you so much. Okay, let's dive in. Here we go. Talking about the middle way. The middle way is a concept which the Buddha used to describe his own development of biography in terms of practice. And I'm going to come to his example in a moment. But I want to put a bit of flesh to the bones, because the middle way can sound a bit like a false compromise if we think about it first. It's just like, am I negotiating two things I can't agree with fully, and then I agree to do it 50% of the time this way and 50% of the time that way? And is this the middle way? And in my understanding, the middle way, and here we come to the confusion, is a counterbalance, almost a shift of perspective to a form of confusion, a form of human tendency we all have. If I look into the human mind, what I see is a common tendency to act and to interpret, perceive experience in extremes. Our mind has a tendency to categorize in oppositional pairs, in binaries. And you all know them: black and white, right and wrong, good and bad. And there are many others. So it loves to almost simplify this extremely complex world into those two categories. I don't think it is necessarily a very harmful tendency. I think it's there to respect the limited capacities of our minds, and thus it tries to box things, box experiences into certain categories and make it easier to comprehend and maneuver in this world. So all due respect to our minds, but it needs probably, and it helps to have these structures. But as a practitioner, I like to be aware of the oversimplification my mind is usually creating by doing so. I like to have a certain awareness of boxes, especially if they are oppositional pairs. in my perception of the world, myself, other people, things I should be doing, not be doing, any rules I have. Yeah. So there is a price for oversimplification. First of all, it's not true that only oppositional pairs exist. It's not true that in our world there is only right and wrong. And it's definitely, if you take the color scales, not true that there is only black and white. There is a lot of colors of gray in between. And I try not to be reminded of a certain book here. Yeah, a lot of shades in between. And our mind does not like shades very much. It likes black and white because that is graspable. That is kind of, in a concept way, dense, yeah, easily to be understood. So it almost pushes experiences to the one or the other extreme. And we lose the space in between. By doing so, we have a tendency to overly intensify our experience. This is in between the good and the bad, there is no space. So it's either very good what we did or very bad, and we easily fall prey to either building up our self-esteem very high and then rock bottom when we come the next day and we don't accomplish something. The other person can be either a very kind, very sweet person, or it's a bad person. Yeah, it's a harmful person, and we over intensify our experience. Most things are less dramatic than our mind wants us to believe. Less bad, less important, less glorious, less dangerous, because it's somewhere in here in the grayish zone. And our mind doesn't like boredom. It wants to be stimulated. Yeah, if you have been on silent retreat, you know that almost craving after a while for more stimulus. And putting things into those extreme opposites, that creates stimulus, that creates intensity. And some minds of some of us have almost like a small addiction to intensity. The heart mind is not comfortable maneuvering in these grayish zones. And the other thing which we lose is that we fix things into categories. Yeah, we say things are, it's like this, you are like that, I am like this. Yeah, and we're actually losing the important perspective of conditioned arising, of impermanence, to say things are shifting and moving. People are shifting and moving dynamics. No one is always good or always bad or always kind or always unkind. Yeah, it's very more dynamic than our minds want to make us believe. And even if we want to make a change to the positive, even when we practice on our Dharma path, we can observe this tendency to pendulate between those extremes. Let's say I have had, or a practitioner has had moments of deep inner trouble and restlessness and a very agitated mind. So the extreme of restlessness, of extreme busyness, let's say. And the next thing he or she or they are trying to do is to say, okay, what I need to do is to go into the other extreme and go into stillness and put myself on a cushion, or even better, go on a 3 months rain retreat somewhere in the forest. That will be the complete opposite. And as this extreme has not served me well, most probably what will serve me well is the complete opposite, and we're shifting, we're pendulating way out to the other side, way out into the other extreme. We can't cope with that extreme either. Yeah. So after a while, relying solely on our willpower, which eventually gets brittle and then breaks, we shift back into the previous extreme. And what we are causing for ourselves is a strong pendulating movements between extremes. Pushed from one extreme to the next. And we can know that movement in very many of our everyday choices, everyday life rules we're making for us. We're stuck in one extreme, and what we do is we try to do a 180, a complete turnaround and go to the opposite side. And it would be just interesting for you to see whether you have rules and whether you try to attempt something where you try to go to the complete opposite. And I've always find that a bit risky, that extreme. Yeah. And it's not only risky for us, and now we come to the Buddha himself, it has been risky for him himself. If you know his biography, he has been a sort of a prince, definitely a son of a very wealthy, powerful man in his clan. And so he had all the riches, all the sensual pleasures available in ancient India in that time. And what he did when he noticed that is not satisfying, that is not filling me up, that is not providing lasting contentment or any form of unconditioned safety, he said, okay, to the heck with all of that. He left in the middle of the night and he did a run off on his wife and just born child. And one might notice already that this quick impulsive turnarounds are not helpful and not kind to either oneself or others. So he went off into the forest. He did the severest form of ascesis you can imagine, only to notice after 7 years that's not it either. And he then says in the discourses, these two extremes should not be cultivated by a practitioner. What two? Indulgence in sensual pleasures, which is fleeting and short-sighted, unworthy and pointless, and indulgence in self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble and pointless. Avoiding these two extremes, the Buddha woke up by understanding the middle way of practice, which gives vision and knowledge and leads to peace, immediate understanding, awakening, and liberation. And that is powerful, I think. Yeah, that is the description of the middle way, Majjhima Patipada. Yeah, where he says it's neither the indulging in sensual pleasures. Yeah, the blind. Yeah, you can enjoy your sensual pleasures and even find a lot of happiness and nourishment in that. It's the blind indulging. Yeah, the blind indulging, the impulsive indulging. Which keeps us trapped, to say, that is what my happiness depends upon. It's the new shiny car, it's the new clothes, it's my outer appearance, whatever it is, blindly indulging that, holding on to that, which is one extreme. And on the other extreme, it's a deprivation. I shall not indulge in anything. I shall not find joy in any sensual input. Away with all of that. And it's kind of denying oneself all kind of needs, even the most existential ones. And he said, none of these two is the middle way. And he kind of woke up to this understanding. He woke up to the necessity of walking this wobbly, uncertain, not clearly defined middle way of practice. And you might not be neither an ascetic nor indulging very blindly in a lot of things, but I think we can find those extremes in our daily lives everywhere I can. We notice extremes in our behavior, speech, or thought. Every time where the mind says something like either this or that, either this or that, where he can't unify, integrate extremes, we might be close to falling off the middle way, where it says either in or out. Children do that a lot with each other, and it can be very cruel. Either you're in or you're out. And I know some politicians who do the same harmful act. Either you're in or you're out. Choice is to act and behave. Any hard rules of behavior. I always should do this. In the future, I'm always going to stick to that plan. I never should do that. Harsh rules. And a shaming, a condemning, a blaming of that which should not be. We're moralizing the other extreme. We're saying one is the good, and we moralize in a way that say, and the other one is really bad, has to be shamed, has to be condemned, is evil. That it can be very harsh upon ourselves and others. perspectives of this is good and bad, and this is right and wrong. Yeah, I am good and bad if I do this and that, right and wrong. Yeah, just keep an ear open for these trigger words: good, bad, right, wrong. Yeah. Any views and opinions where we claim truth. This is how things are. This is the right way to do things for me, for you, for us. Yeah, to saying, really, is it so simple? Yeah, all those rules. I always think they are not respectful enough of the complexity of our lives. Yeah, not even our own lives. More complex than that a simple rule could kind of make up for that. Yeah. So, what to do instead? Because if we kind of rattle and shake gently at all those clear categories our minds want to achieve, what I'm left with at times is that feeling of yucky, undefined open space, and the question of, okay, what am I going to do now? I need to take action. I need to maneuver in this world. Yeah, and those categories make it much easier for me. The middle way doesn't say, well, it's all relative, do what you want. Yeah, it brings practice back into an exploration, and it's very respectful of not claiming truth as an absolute truth, which is always true, but to bring it to this moment. What is true in this moment? What is a skillful response to this dynamic at hand? I don't need to make a plan for the rest of my life. I don't need to find the truth about all situations in which X, Y, Z takes place. I just need to take care of this situation, this moment. What is helpful right now under these conditions? Yeah. And that I find such a relief. I don't need to find the master rule. I don't need to figure it all out. I have a situation at hand, and this is what I'm going to take care of. Yeah. And there is a situational truth where I can speak about potentially my needs, where another can speak potentially about their needs and boundaries, where I can know the causes and conditions of this moment. And in this intermix, in this kind of pot, I can appropriately respond to the situation. This is why the Buddha put on the Eightfold Path, in front of every part of those 8 axes, he put the word samma. It's appropriate, it's conducive. Yeah, and mindfulness can be samma sati, and it can be not. It can be inappropriate mindfulness. And samadhi, concentration, focus, gathering of the being, it can be appropriate and can be inappropriate. Yeah, because it might not respond to the needs of this situation. And maybe an invitation to practice with this, is to just notice any forms of extremes your mind habitually go to, with all the due respect, to say, oh dear mind, this situation is really overwhelming, and I see you try to maneuver our uncertainty and fear and maybe frustration by making up clearer structures. Thank you for your support in doing so. And thank you for showing me those extremes. Now that I know what the one extreme is and the other extreme is, I can actually wriggle my way towards the middle. Yeah. What is a middle way? What do I need to balance out? And sometimes we need to give our minds a little nudge, because they start to hold on to grip, to contract around one extreme or the other. Yeah, because that gives safety. Those rules, those structures give us a lot of safety. So it can be a little experiment with different perspectives and views. What other perspectives and views of this situation are possible? Sometimes you can do them only theoretical. I have done practices where I notice a harsh truth has formed in my life. And I just wrote down all the potential other perspectives and views one could have about this situation. And I noticed others are way out of balance as well. Yeah, other extremes I don't find helpful either. But over time, something formed out like, these are potential views one could always have around this situation. I also love to talk to others, yeah, and just see that a similar situation, a similar condition, a similar conflict um, provokes quite different views and interpretations in other people. And saying, isn't that interesting? Yeah, what I, in my personal little bubble, perceive to be the truth gets poked through because I look at another and say, wow, he or she or they are looking at this completely different. Yeah, interesting. Interesting to put that view besides the already existing view. And to play around with that. And maybe you notice, I do definitely, coming up some resistance, to letting go of a claim of truth, letting go of a hard rule, letting go of this is how things are, yeah. And then to feel and respect this resistance. As I said, probably a mechanism of giving structure and safety in your life. And the small question coming up with it, what would I have to accept? What would I have to let go of or face when I want to leave this black and whitish thinking? What would need to have a sense of safety? What would need to have a sense of direction if I let go of this clinging to this view, to this perspective, to this understanding, so that it is a rather kind practice. Okay, so I hope I just sum it up very quickly, that we can understand now the middle way is a way of liberation, a way of liberation from polarities and fixed views and thinking in boxed categories, where we ourselves as people and other people have more space, where we know that there are always different views and perspectives at hand, and where we actually have the freedom to apply that perspective and that practice which is conducive to this moment. Yeah, a liberation. I don't need to figure it all out. I can take care of this moment and that moment and this moment. Okay, thank you very much for listening. And now let's practice with this. So, enough with all the words. Let's have less words now. And maybe start off with finding your meditation posture in the sitting, in the standing, in the walking, in the lying down, whatever you prefer this morning. And just notice how you're feeling, how you're doing this morning. Is the body tired or awake? Is the heart open, soft, kind, or rather contracted, agitated, full of emotional dynamic? Is the mind, the thinking mind, active with thoughts about, after listening to those words, rather calm and clear? Most probably none of that, because that have been the extremes. So just somewhere on the scale between calmed, easy, and agitated, contracted. And just see how easy it is to understand meditation as working towards an extreme. The extreme of calm, the extreme of stillness, the extreme of total relaxation, the extreme of feeling very good about ourselves. And maybe we can soften the necessity to arrive at that extreme. Might not be helpful to have that dangling in front of our minds, have that as the expectation. Maybe it's just caring of this body, caring for this body right now. So what small little change could you make in your posture as an offering to your body, which would allow it to feel a little bit more at ease? And please play with it. Try it out for yourself. And I don't know about all the next breath cycles and whether we can tend to them. Maybe that's another extreme. What about the next inhale? Can we invite that inhale to be nourishing to the body in its length or shortness, its intensity or shallowness, as if we were artists and the breath our next stroke of the brush. And just an exhale, just the next one. Maybe while doing so, you notice all the tension there is and all the agitation there is. And so easily the mind says, oh, there is all this things going on. I can't meditate this morning. Maybe just name them. Reduce them to what they actually are. There is this flickering in the mind of potential thoughts. There's this density, achiness somewhere in the body. Name it. Specify it so that it's not all that which there is. You're more than those unpleasant experiences. Or maybe we put aside these unpleasant ones and add a couple of pleasant experiences to the moment. What is there? Maybe some comfy place within the body. maybe something you hear or touch, maybe even smell, or if you like to see if you open up your eyes. Oh, that belongs to this moment as well. Stay with them for a while. The mind bounces off into thoughts and comments and analysis. That's fine. You might still need to arrive for a little longer. But if a mindful moment arises, maybe you can use that opportunity to show something small and beautiful, small and nourishing to the mind. Look at that. The comfort of my blanket, the birds song outdoors, whatever it is. And if the mind is agitated and the body feels achy, just be aware of the story-making mind, which might say, "Oh, this is all there is," or "Oh no, this is going to last forever, for the rest of the meditation. This is how things are." Just this never pausing chatter. Maybe we can poke a hole in that story, saying, I notice a thought. I notice a tension here, there. And I don't know about the future, and I don't need to know about the future. And in between those pleasant and unpleasant expressions we can touch upon with consciousness, there are so many neutral ones. Maybe just feel your calves or feet on the floor, or just notice the space around you. Really unspectacular small things. Have you ever been aware of your elbows? If, of course, any of that places hurts, you would not consider it to be neutral. So please find other simple, neutral experiences in these moments. Or maybe just visit them for an inhale and an exhale. Just see what happens. Now that we prepared the ground a little bit, I put the next decision in your own good hands. Given the conditions of this moment, what would be appropriate for you right now to tend to the unpleasant and breathe there and be there with compassion, hold it in care and kindness? Or to turn towards the pleasant and be nourished and stabilized and earthed by it? Or to stay with those unexciting but very easeful, neutral experiences? Try it out for yourself in silence in the next minutes. Just play and experiment, please. There's no right and wrong. And if something comes up while you experiment, play with that. Just see how the mind labels that quickly as a problem. Can you be a little bit more specific? What is going on? And how can you potentially care for that right now? Not making a solution for the rest of your life, but what could you try out to take care of that? And if you like, you can accompany me for the last few minutes to our breathing. And you will see that in the breathing itself, there are enough pleasant and unpleasant, neutral experiences. Just in one inhale and exhale. And maybe just notice whether you're doing a lot around the breathing. Whether there is any form of pressure to extend it or prolong it. Whether there is some effort in the breathing you could gently, gently invite to soften a bit. And then I invite you to be aware of your whole body, sitting, standing, lying, walking, moving. Hello, dear body. Gently start to move it. Small movements, growing bigger over time. Maybe to stretch and yawn and sigh if that is helpful. And once you feel ready, you come back to the screen. So, hopefully, that was a journey or an exploration into how meditation is not one thing, how breathing is not one thing, how there are always those pleasant, unpleasant, neutral experiences, and the mind likes to grasp one of them and saying, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's the experience. And how quickly this narrative starts to kick in. Yeah. And to say there is some peacefulness in the reduction and coming back to the simplicity of this moment, this moment, this moment. Yeah. Even with my life, those who raise children or care for something, or even in the job you're doing, to say, oh, sometimes the mind wants to have the master plan and it wants to know what to do with the child, the job, the partner. Yeah. To say it's such a relief, at least for me, to say I'm going to take care of this day, this moment, this interaction, and I don't know about tomorrow. How can we fathom out all the conditions which just of tomorrow? Yeah, way too much. So there is a peacefulness and a simplification into giving myself to the next moment, the next moment of practice, the next moment of communication, the next moment of just being with myself. Sometimes enough of a challenge, yeah. Okay, thank you for practicing with me. And now would be time for you to share upon your experiences of this meditation. The easy experiences, the challenging experiences, all is truly welcome. You could write about your own extremes, your pendulating in between, and the middle way, your practice with the middle way, which surely many of you will already do, whether they have a name for it or not. You can ask questions on your practice or what I talked about today. All is truly welcome. And while you type, I just switch on the electricity, else I'll be gone way too early. Okay. Okay. Ruth is writing, yeah, a reflection. I love this invitation, had a deep realization that when I'm dealing with my pre-teen son pushing me away, I have a tendency to slam a door and leave. I realized that I can in that moment turn to give myself the love that I'm missing. Thank you. Great, Ruth. That is beautiful. That is in this heat of the moment with the children or the loved ones, just consciously, unconsciously, the mind very quickly drives the story of this is how it is going to be. Yeah, this is how it's going to be. We're going to be in that conflict forever. It's going to hurt forever. Yeah, and we usually miss that opportunity to say, oh, actually, there's a big ouch in that moment. The door is slammed, and we can literally the sound of the door just kind of reverberates like the pain in our bodies. To feel that and to say, actually, taking care of that situation in this moment means to turn to myself and allow me to bring compassion to that ouch, just as you wrote, Ruth. Very beautiful. And then, and just in that moment, to step away from any narrative or story taking or solution finding or anything. What is important is and appropriate is that caretaking in that moment. Great. Thank you. Lewis is writing, climate activism and activism in general deals in extremes. Are extremes necessary sometimes? I'm quite involved in that. Yes, thank you for Lewis. Now I need to tread carefully. I know that I have a deep respect and honor the activism which is done towards climate crisis, but also in other parts of society where it's deeply necessary that we raise our voices and saying there is some tendency in our society, some tendency in our climate definitely, towards a change which is going to bring suffering and pressure upon many in the world. Yeah, less ourselves personally than probably other parts of the worldwide population. Is this an extreme? I know that extremes are cast upon the wall to say this is how the world is going to be. Yeah. And sometimes I see that this vision is used to create pressure in form of fear upon ourselves, upon other people. And my engagement in climate activism has shown me that if these extremes are too dense, too forceful, I collapse into fear. I collapse into fear about that which might come. Yeah, it seems so big, I can't handle it. I feel too small to handle it. Yeah. So in the description of what we think is going to come and think is going to happen, yeah, with the good backup of science there, do we use narratives in a way, and that is really my question, which are creating enough awakening, enough urgency to say we don't want the other extreme either. Yeah, we don't want to tap into that. We don't want to go into that direction. But am I allowing a space and a sense of yes, there is still activity possible. It still makes sense to act. Bring it back to a personal level. When you say I'm doomed for whatever reason, I can't do anything. I'm sick, I'm going to die, whatever it is. And nothing I'm going to do is going to change that. We're going to collapse into helplessness. Yeah. We feel helpless, we feel overwhelmed, and we don't start doing things. And this is my concern, Louise, is that when we work with, as activists, too much with the scenario of total crisis, that we actually make those people who would be willing and interesting to support us, that we make them feel overwhelmed and helpless. yeah, rather than inviting them to join us and do the little steps we can do in this moment. Anything you want to respond back on that, Louis, would be very welcomed. Yeah. Laura is writing, I hear tripping a faucet. I turn it off. I feel tired. I lie down. I question my discipline. Should I let these go? Is it okay to get up and take care of them during meditation? I would not have in the past, but today I did. So Laura, I'm interested in seeing how that worked for you, because even shifting our posture in meditation or lying, I have people in retreats, I constantly invite them to lie down when they feel they can't sit anymore, only under pain. And the only invitation I do is to say, do what is careful, supportive to your body, heart, and mind, and do it consciously. Do it with awareness. You can walk very mindfully to the tripping faucet and be aware of your hand, turning that off, and consciously walk back to the place. And I believe that we can include this way caring for ourselves into the meditation. Why not? Why do we need to maintain this? Meditation is only if it's static and on our place and we don't shift and we don't move. Yeah. Even if it's against pain, even if it's against fear, even if it's against deep discomfort, even if we have to handle, and I think this is your case, a distraction which the mind can't handle at the moment very well, we're just stripping it off into frustration and agitation there. Yeah. So I hope that was like an experience of compassion and care for yourself. Any more questions, reflections, and sharing? Jasmine is writing. I often get caught in confusion with extremes in any situation, fighting each other, including intrusive thought. Yeah, it creates a lot of suffering and hard to shift through to find clarity. Can you speak more about how to work with this? Thank you, Jasmine. I think that is something we can all relate to. You will see some connection, some correlation between the intensity of an emotion and the intensity of a view, an extreme view and extreme judgment upon a situation, yourself or another. Yeah. And I just love to see that in myself. I love to notice the emotional heat. Yeah. And just to see, wow, there is actually a connection to the views which then come up. Yeah, it's so correlated. And I can also notice that if I have the possibility and the space to calm myself down and nourish myself and actually recreate a sense of safety around myself, the clarity re-arises with that. Yeah, so that I see my views so much depend not. They are not an isolated truth, but they so much depend. Yeah, so much depend on emotions, on my amount of sleep. I definitely notice a difference in my ways to go towards the extremes, depending just on how much sleep I get. Yeah, just on how much sleep and rest I get. So there comes a certain practice of putting question mark behind views and almost a sense of a contraction, an urge within a view. Those extremist views, they usually want you to do something and change something and make something happen. And that is also in something you can almost feel out. If you, in a confused state, try to meet mind with mind, that usually doesn't work well. So I like to return to the body, saying, how am I feeling right now? There is this view, and how am I feeling right now? Ooh, there is a lot of tension and thought and agitation and impulses to do and say something. I'd be careful with that view. Yeah, I'd be really careful with that view. And then making an endeavor to say, okay, that is my view right now. I honor that. There will be some truth in it, something helpful, something to respect, something to acknowledge. Yeah. And if it's just a need and a boundary of yours, or eliminate the just. Yeah. And maybe it's a need and a boundary of yours. But I notice at the moment lack of clarity. So I make my procession back to clarity. For me, that's often a walk or a meditation or just doing something practical with my hands. Yeah. And I noticed then we had that in the beginning of the weeks, almost in the body, a sense of stability, clarity, groundedness rearises. And that often accompanies an opening up of the views. Yes, that might be true, and this can be true, and that is another puzzle piece, and I need to consider this, and that is part of the dynamic. And saying, okay, clarity is back. The tunnel vision has opened up, and that is lovely. That is when I start to make decisions. That is when I start to reconsider a conflict I had. Yeah, when I notice, what the horses have, like those tunnel vision things they have, that is opening up again. Okay. Heidi is writing. I find your explanation about the middle way very helpful. I'm a neurodiverse, sorry about not pronouncing that well, neurodiverse person, and often feel if I only had the rules, I could find a way to love sustainability. In the past couple of years, I've been leaning in more and more to the idea that there are no rules, but also that I cannot expect from myself as much as the world and others expect of me. Yeah. This explanation today has helped me take another step forward, a mental framework that feels like I can live with it. Great, Heidi. I'm happy to hear that. Yes, and I think we get so much suggestions that there are those rules, especially as children. Yeah, we grow up with a lot of rules, and part of them are helpful and necessary to navigate as communities, but they are not absolute truths. Other communities then act differently. Other families act differently, and we might constantly be on the lookout for that rule, which makes us feel safe in social contexts, and there are not. Yeah, we see they're all transparent, they're all negotiable, they change, yeah, with the mood of the other person. Yesterday that behavior was appropriate, today you don't feel it fine. And that can be so confusing. Yeah. And then come back to what we talked about yesterday, to have this inner sense of integrity and say, okay, I'm going to figure out for myself rules to play by, soft rules, yeah, which I will check with the appropriateness of the situation. But I can't depend on those rules given by the outer because they are not stable and fixed either. Yeah. Thank you for writing that, Heidi. Yeah, Louis is writing on his response. It seems like the general population is caught in numbness and freeze, almost like in trauma. Yeah, considering making this the focus, it seems the here and now edge not so extreme either. Beautiful, Louis. Yeah, I would second that part of the population is caught in something which is what we talked about yesterday in the I'd rather not know that. Yeah, I'd rather not know that because then I have to take consequences. So there is maybe I think we are all have the tendency, based on the culture we live in, to get easily trapped in comfort. Yeah, we have a society, we have a consumer culture, which is almost numbing us with comfort, and that is tragic. Yeah, the resilience towards discomfort is very, very low in our society, and that is part of the numbness you're talking about. And the other part of the numbness is the freeze and the trauma, as we feel very unable to, because we're so individualistic. As soon as a problem, societal culture problem pops up, it feels too much to handle because we lack the community structures to say, okay, I can rely, I'm a part of a community, and I feel as part of that whole, we can do something. So I always think about creating community structures, more community structures where we feel this power of being more than the number of one to create something and do a change. So maybe activism, a part of activistic work could be that, create communities, bring people together, and so that they have this ability to maneuver together in this world. Okay, just a couple of thoughts. No claim of truth here at all. Thank you so much for you all to listen and be with us this morning, and for your very lovely contributions. And I'm going to see you tomorrow, and we're going to talk about clarity finally. One more practice idea sharing upon clarity. Thank you for everything.